Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast. I'm Tammy Takeishi, and I'm here today with Zia Blue, a singer-songwriter whose debut single, He Dared, is out now. Before we jump to the questions, I just wanted to let listeners know that there is a Creative Piecemeal Podcast YouTube. On there, you can check out everything from promos and shorts to special clips that are coordinated with episodes, such as Rachel May, who is an author and book coach. So please check that out on YouTube. So we're going to jump right in. Who or what inspired you to become a musician?
Hi, everybody. Music has always been kind of in my blood and in my bones and in my household as a kid. So I don't think that it's any one person or like one artist, but I grew up going to a bunch of music festivals around Montana, which is my home state. And yeah, my parents would just take me out, me and my brother. And I would, like try and tap dance along with the Irish dancers or, whatever was going on, get down to the bluegrass music. So yeah, it's always just like been in the home. We've always had a bunch of CDs. Yeah, it's just always been there from the get-go, and it kind of, I don't know, snowballed, I guess, when my parents put us in like choirs and music lessons. So yeah.
Nice. So it basically always felt like a part of you and kind of a natural decision then.
Yeah, absolutely. My brother is also very musically inclined, so somehow we just got the little itch.
That's great. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about your recent single, He Dared, and sort of how that came about?
Yeah, sure. So He Dared, let's see, it's almost a year ago, probably in July. This coming July, it'd be about like a year since the events that I wrote the song about were happening real time. Basically, it's just about a boy. I write all my songs about boys so far. The the key point of most of my songs is heartbreak and silly boys breaking my heart. But yeah, it's kind of heart-wrenching. I was involved in this kind of like love triangle with one of my best friends, and yeah, it was really tough because of course at the end of the day, like, all I needed was her friendship, but of course things got in the way, and yeah, it's just kind of following my heartbreak. As yeah, I don't want to get too into it, I don't want to like disclose all these people's names and stuff, but yeah, I'll just leave it pretty simple that it was just kind of some torturing heartbreak that I didn't see coming.
It sounds like a lot of inspiration for your songs comes from real life events or things that happened to you. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, I would say for sure. I'm pretty new to songwriting, so I see a lot of other artists, writing about, I don't know, like some dream they had or some experience that somebody else had, but I think I still have yet to find inspiration from other people's stories or just like little daydreams that I have. But I think that yeah, the real world is where I am getting my start.
That sounds great. Yeah, wherever you can draw inspiration from as an artist, there's really no wrong answer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And there's definitely types of artists that pull from more like hypothetical scenarios. But I'm definitely more of a write all my emotions in this one song and then and then just get it out there. Yeah.
I think that's true for so many musicians and poets and things like that. You
Yeah.
really channel your emotions through that, and sometimes it becomes like a hit, and then
Yeah.
everyone's singing your heartbreak on the radio,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And I think that's the weirdest part about it all is that you might, I don't know, is that that story becomes public, and as an introvert it can be very difficult to kind of try and just let it be free and let it be owned by other people and other people's thoughts and emotions and late night car rides, and just like kind of let them make it their own. But that's also really special. Like that's a really unique and powerful part about songwriting.
Very true. Very true. You said you recently got into songwriting, but did you study music in school, or did you end up studying something else and then it eventually led to music?
Yeah, so I was a freshman. I am a freshman at the University of Puget Sound. I said was because I don't think I'm going back in the fall. So if any UPS listeners hear this, I'm so sorry, UPS. It wasn't you, it was me. So yeah, I studied a little bit. It was mostly music theory. That's what everybody had to kind of like trudge through in the beginning. And unfortunately, the UPS music school's curriculum is definitely classically focused, and it's an incredible school for classical composers, conductors. But the songwriting singing songwriting major was not around until I think they said my senior year. So I was gonna have to do a little bit of waiting, and I probably would have just fell into something else. I'm not very academic, or like, I don't know, traditionally academic, where I do really well in school. I get good grades, but I just can't really focus. And so I was looking into psych and, just dabbling in other areas as you do as a freshman. I honestly didn't see myself anywhere else, and I wanted to, while I was still young and really had no responsibilities, I just wanted to follow music.
Yeah. And there's so many different paths in the arts, which is what makes it beautiful. You don't have to have a traditional school education. You don't need an MFA to write. You don't necessarily need a music degree to pursue music. You just need to have passion and drive, and it sounds like you definitely do. You were recently on American Idol. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about that experience and how that sort of shaped you going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that American Idol did for me was just let me know that I actually have like a lot of talent. It's really hard to say because I've never been one to like boast or be just like really, out there with my confidence, but it's definitely something that I need to get used to because I don't know, I feel like on the flip side of being really humble, you can kind of get caught up in that and kind of get caught up. I think that a lot of my humbling didn't necessarily come from like, wow, I'm being so humble, great for me. I think it's more of like a self doubt slash lack of confidence in myself. And I think that just going and doing what I did and getting as far as I did just showed me that I actually have a lot of potential, which is really crazy.
What is a book that you recently read that inspired you? And would you say that do you ever get inspired by books to do songwriting?
Unfortunately, I'm not really a reader. I'm not really a reader. If there's a good fictional book, then I'm all for it, but I've never sought out books except for, here we go, except for a book called He Was Born This Way by Adrian Michael. He's this Black poet based out of San Francisco. Just like absolutely gorgeous stuff. I found him on Instagram, and he would just like post his he sometimes writes poems that are like 3 stanzas long, or just 3 lines long. And so they're really like cute little snippets that you're like, oh, wow, like so profound. But He Was Born This Way is basically kind of his view on toxic masculinity, just like the things that he has found in his life that he kind of put into a book of just advice and guidance for men, generally men. So that was I don't know, I'm really interested in the topic of toxic masculinity and mental health, especially for men, especially since men have the highest suicide rates in America. So yeah, it was just he's just an incredibly prolific poet, and the stuff that he put in there was sometimes actually related to myself. I think that I either picked up traits from the men in my life that would like turn around, and I would act in the same way that Adrian would describe. Yeah, and it was, I don't know, it's just a really fascinating book. Definitely like self help, self divulge, kind of try and get inside your brain a little bit. And it was really fascinating to kind of realize that toxic masculinity doesn't just affect men, that women can be on either side, like the perpetrating point of view or the victim side. Yeah, so yeah, it's just an incredible book, and poetry is beautiful. So
Nice. I appreciate you sharing that and opening up about that. I'll definitely add the book to the show notes. I'm a big fan of poetry, and I think it's fantastic that especially the younger generations seem to be a lot more comfortable with getting in touch with their mental health and sort of
yeah.
getting the help that they need. Do you find that songwriting is sort of a way of healing yourself, and do you ever see yourself as maybe inspiring others?
Yeah, I hope that I do. I think that my songwriting obviously just ends up as songs in which people can, feel the universal emotions. My one song is heartbreak. I guess all of my songs are mostly heartbreak. But yeah, I hope to inspire a generation of younger people to kind of be more mindful. And yeah, like I said, I think my songs are kind of just there as an outlet to like cry your heart out or feel the emotions that I felt in that song. But songwriting for me on the other end definitely is healing and processing. Definitely more processing than anything else. I still have a really hard time kind of like opening my heart and finding what's actually going on in there, because it's so much easier to just like push it away and then deal with it when bleep hits the fan. So yeah, it's definitely so rewarding to just like sit down, to just be in a point of your life where you're like, wow, I need something, and then I'll go and pick up my guitar and cry a little bit, write a little bit, journal a little bit, dance around my room, and then end up playing some chords and finding a melody.
It definitely sounds very healing and like a productive and creative way to sort of work through emotions.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
What is one of your favorite parts about the creative process?
I think one of my favorite parts is finding a melody and having words just kind of come to me, like just sometimes it feels like out of nowhere, but I think that songs have a way of finding people in a time that they're feeling that certain way. Like I think that specific lyrics can resonate really really hard with you at certain points in your life, and I think that you can end up honestly kind of singing and remembering those lyrics when you're in a time of strife and struggle. I think that lyrics kind of come on the mind of like a popular song or a song that you listened to before, and but that also carry the sentiment of how you're feeling in that point of time. And I think that on the other end of that, on the songwriting end of that, I think that that's definitely true, but like original work will come to you, if you get what I mean. It's like kind of magical. But sometimes there was this one day that I was just walking around and suddenly like a melody hit me and I hummed it a couple times, and then like lyrics were there, and I was like, wow, like I've definitely felt this emotion before. Am I feeling this emotion right now? Like, or was it recently? So yeah, I think that that's one of the most magical parts of songwriting, and that's not to I guess that's kind of like glorifying songwriting, because sometimes it's just like sitting down and going through a bunch of ideas that are really shitty until you find something that you really enjoy.
And what would you say is your least favorite part of the creative process?
I think my least favorite part, okay, so my instrument is a guitar. It's guitar and voice primarily, but I've never felt really solid with my guitar playing. Like I don't know like most of the chord names. I know F, I know D, I know A minor, I know, like the the first fret area pretty well, but once it gets up the frets, I have no idea what I'm making, and I just play it and it sounds fine. It sounds good. It sounds like a song. But I've just never been attentive enough to kind of find those chords and kind of make relationships with those chords. So I think my least favorite would probably be making like the bridge or the chorus when I don't really know what direction, or mostly just the bridge, and not chorus, but chords in general just can be kind of, I'll just play like 12 chords and all in succession, and they'll sound really terrible, and then I'll find one and I'm like, that works, which is absolutely the worst. It's like not efficient whatsoever. So I would definitely say that plus finding a bridge that somehow like diverts from the chorus and regular part of the song and then somehow comes back. I always find those to be so troublesome.
I feel you about the bridge. I'm always amazed. I'm like, how do they do that? It's like one line, but it seems so difficult.
Yeah, no, I've never been good at it, so I've never put them in. All of my songs are currently bridgeless.
There you go. It's
There we
a
go.
trend, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna switch things up. Sort of a fun question is, what top 3 meals would you recommend to a tourist visiting your part of the world?
Yes, I answered these on my little Google Doc. I was hoping I'd get this done. Okay. I would say, so my mom is such an amazing cook. So if a tourist were to come to Montana, to Ovando, Montana, obviously they would either stay at the Ovando Inn, which is super tiny, or they would stay with us. And they would eat my mom's pie, my mom's pickles, and then we would go scavenging for morel mushrooms and huckleberries.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah. The infamous huckleberry. Everybody like raves about the huckleberry. I worked at an ice cream shop, and huckleberry ice cream is our best seller. It's just like a berry you find in the mountains. It's so good. It's so good. It takes forever to pick them, but so good.
That sounds very tasty. Do you actually go, so you go out and you actually find huckleberries yourself?
Yeah, morel mushrooms, that's the same. They just are most commonly found in like burned, disturbed areas. So yeah, it's always so fun to go and try and find their little mushroom hats poking out of the dirt. Yeah, I don't know. There's something else about foraging for your food that's so great. makes the food that you put in your belly so much better.
Nice. Do you find yourself hiking a lot? Is that inspirational to be out in nature?
Oh my gosh, yes, it's so wonderful. I've worked on a trail crew or a couple trail crews. I've worked it outside a lot of my life. There's definitely something about just being out in nature and just like witnessing the craziest little things that you wouldn't expect to witness or think that you would ever witness. Yeah, it's just so relaxing. And from my house in Montana, sometimes you can't hear the highway. It's pretty loud, but sometimes you can't hear it. And you can hear coyotes or sandhill cranes. And it's so magical to be under a night sky and just listen to quiet, listen to nothing.
That sounds so peaceful.
It's very peaceful. It's a great place to write.
I can imagine. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of ideas come pouring out when you're under that Montana sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get back to a music question, but if you could play any other instrument other than guitar, what would you want to play?
It would be a saxophone. I've always wanted to play the saxophone. There's this one, Kanye West song, and it has, oh my gosh, I'm gonna need to find it. Oh my gosh, all the Kanye West fans out there are gonna be like, Zia, why don't you know these songs? But it's because I'm not really a Kanye West fan, guys. But I don't know, I think it starts with God, something God, and it's by Kanye. It's on his like Sunday album. I'm not sure if that's even one of his album names, but there's this saxophone solo by this incredible or sax player. But I would listen to that on repeat in the car, and it sounds so much. It's kind of has the same quality as a cello or a voice. It's kind of just that, like, I don't know, really, really personable or human kind of tone. And yeah, that's what sent me. I was like, yes, this is something that I want to at least fiddle around with at some point in my life.
That sounds really cool. I always love asking that question because it's amazing what people say. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's said the bagpipes yet, though.
Oh, not the bagpipes. My brother played the bagpipes once. It was very, very loud in our house. It was very loud. But it was cool, and I did do a couple jigs, so worth it.
This is going to be a tough question. It's usually tough for the musicians, but who are some of your favorite composers and or artists and bands?
I have 3. These are my top. Well, no, false. I have 4. I'm gonna put a 4th one there. One of the first people that let me have the realization that I needed R&B and soul in my life was Leanne La Havas, and she's a British singer and songwriter. Has the most beautiful quality in her voice and plays the jazz guitar like no other. And her song Gone was the first kind of like ballad other than Adele that really pulled me into her and her songwriting. And then of course we've got some greats. We've got Aretha Franklin. Obviously, I just watched Aretha with J Lo on some streaming service, and oh my God, she had the hardest life, but she was a genius. But she had such a hard life, especially just trying to make her voice heard as a Black woman during the times in a music industry that was dominated by white men. But yeah, she was absolutely a genius and so brave. And then Stevie Wonder, of course. I don't have to say anything about Stevie Wonder or Aretha, but just absolute geniuses. And then my most recent favorite, who I've been stuck on for a couple years now, is Yeba, and her name is actually Abby Smith. So it's Yeba backwards is Abby. And she is a mix of soul, and she's kind of funky, kind of rappy, hip hoppy. And yeah, she grew up in Memphis. Her dad was a pastor, and she would lead prayers and songs sometimes. And so she just has the voice angel. So yeah, those are probably my top 4.
Nice. I'll have to check out the artists I have not heard of. It's always it's always nice to hear and find new music. Into a more serious question, and that is, did you have any barriers, internal or external, to reaching where you are right now in your musical career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the biggest barrier, and I'm sure a lot of musicians can relate to this, is just the internal struggle of being confident to, walk up on stage and perform your song that you wrote that you think is good and that you want other people to believe is good. And I know that during my American Idol times, I remember just feeling so out of place, and I felt that I did not deserve to be there. But people would come up to me and tell me how good I was, and I don't know, I would, at that point in my life, I would kind of just like brush it off, like, oh, get really nervous, whatever. But I think that it's just a matter of time before I, find my way out of the self-conscious acceptance of approval and appraisal from other people, and kind of just like let it soak in. So I think that's going to be a big help as I go on in my career. And then, of course, practicing, practicing and like diligence and delegating time for that has been one of my trickier. I'm not very balanced. Sometimes I can be pretty crazy. So I would say that just, with practice makes perfect. And it's a necessity if this is what I want to do. So
I think so many of us can definitely relate, to all of those things, no matter where we are in our musical careers.
yeah.
So, what is one of the best compliments that you've ever received?
Oh, I think the best compliments kind of I love the compliments when people relate me to my to my favorite artists, and it's mostly just my friends because they know who my favorite artists are. But whenever I'm compared, we were riding to the roller rink the other night, and my friend was like, "Wow, you sound like Adele," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, thanks!" And then she was like, "Oh, you'll like this one. You sound like Yeba." And I was like, what? Yeah, so whenever anybody tells me I sound like Lian Lahavas or Yeba, I freak out, and it's the best feeling. Honestly, the best feeling. And of course, you're gonna sound like the people that you listen to and draw the most influence from, but it still feels so good to hear it. It still feels so good.
That is always nice too, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
You talked about some of your musical influences, but is there anyone else who's had a really big impact on your musical career so far?
I don't know. My family is awesome. I have such a supportive family, and without the support system that I do have in my friends and my family, I have such a large support system, which is so wonderful, and I'm so grateful for it. But my mom is definitely one of my biggest fans, one of my biggest advocates. Love her to death. So is my dad. My brother is just crazy talented and inspires me all the time. He's so incredible. But yeah, and all together they're the best. Yeah, and I don't think that I would be I don't think that I'd be dropping out of school if it weren't for their acceptance and in their belief in me that I can do something with this. I keep trying to say like that I could do something. I'm gonna do it. I have to manifest actively. But yeah, so I'm gonna do it for them, but of course for me.
That's wonderful. And that is a very powerful thing to have that support system in place and saying like, sure, let's take this ride and see how far it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I am so thankful and so lucky. I know people's parents who have deterred them from a music career or have belittled their dreams because we need a degree, and I hope that in the future, I mean, I still feel like I need to have a degree, and I still feel like I need to, achieve that because that's the next thing that I have to achieve in life, or so society tells you. But I hope that as we move along, that becomes less of a norm, and that people can kind of just like move through the ranks as just like getting a foot through the threshold in some lower level jobs and whatever career path they're looking at.
Yeah, there's definitely different paths to get to where people need to be, and for sure.
Yeah, of course. And that's not to say that a graduate degree or an undergraduate degree are not sufficient, of course. That's also a great achievement.
Yes.
For those who want to pursue it.
Yes, that's the important thing. Yeah, it's really about like finding where you want to go and seeing what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is a common stereotype about being a musician that you hope to break with your work?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that I really want to break, I mean, the stereotypical song structure is kind of no more. Honestly, I think that there are so many different ways that people are crafting songs right now, but I think I definitely want to take that to the next level because I can't make bridges. No. Just kidding. I can try if I really want to, but I think I don't know. I think it's really fun to be flexible with song structures, and I don't know, I feel like if a song is catchy but doesn't follow the verse chorus bridge verse chorus or chorus. I couldn't tell you the stereotypical song structure. But I think that makes music more fun, and I don't know, I think that if a song is catchy, it's catchy, and that's it.
True.
Yeah.
Kind of like how there's Baby Shark. It's like, it's just catchy.
It's just so catchy. I aspire to write more songs like Baby Shark.
There you go. So, what is a funny memory or a favorite memory from your time on American Idol?
We were all just we were waiting. It was some performance day. I think it was duet round. Not sure. But we were just waiting in the audience, and it was after lunch, so we had all gone out and gotten our little lunches and hung outside for a little while. And then we all came back in, and we were sitting around like you do a lot of the time when you are chosen to be on that show. And we were just sitting in the Orpheum, and we were looking at the stage, and Luke Bryan gets back from his lunch break, and he starts just fiddling on the piano, just goofing off, and then one of the crew members comes in and hands him a mic and like sets up the mic for him. And he starts singing, and then Lionel Richie gets back from his lunch break, and then they sing a Lionel Richie song, and then they sing one of his songs, and then Katy Perry gets on the scene. Oh God, do we love Katy Perry. She's so crazy. She's so silly. And she gets handed a mic. They all have mics, and they sing Teenage Dream. She goes for the full like booty squat, so she squats down, and her butt seam just rips wide open. And so the crew spends the next like couple minutes just duct taping it with orange duct tape, and then she went the entire rest of that day with just orange duct tape slapped on her bum bum. So that was probably one of the funniest moments. It was so silly. And she was not affected at all by it. She was like, yep, this happens. She was just being silly about it. But that was pretty silly. And it was so fun to get to watch the judges do their thing. It was definitely like an unscripted moment, which was cool. And then I think my favorite memory was when we were all done judging for Hollywood Week, so it was after the 10 days were up. Everybody knew whether or not they were in the top 24, and everybody was just like relaxed. Like they were, they might have been sad, they might have been a little bit hurt, or really excited to go on to top 24, but we were all just hanging around, and we were finally like in relaxed mode. We were like, yes, we're done for now. Everybody was just singing and hanging out in the halls, and I started talking to people that I had never met before. I remember we were all hanging out in a hotel room, and 100 Girl came in. She was one of the top 3 finalists, and so she came in, and she didn't know me, but I think we introduced ourselves, and right off the bat it was like, oh my gosh, you have a really amazing voice, and I felt so touched. She was so sweet. But everybody was just hyping each other up that night, and we were all harmonizing and singing songs. It was really, really special.
That sounds like you made some really great memories and some lifelong friends from that.
Yeah, I absolutely did. Yes.
Excellent. Well, so one last question before we go, and that's, in your own words, what does living a creative life mean to you?
I think living a creative life means that you take chances. I think that living creatively means that your life isn't going to be the stereotypical life. Yeah, and you kind of roll with the punches and figure out things as they get to you, as well as just like kind of trying to implement your creative processes in the way that you live, and the way that you live, and in those who you decide to bring into your life. I think that's another big one, is that you've got to be creative, and you've got to have creative people in your life to also make that happen. Yeah.
Excellent. Really wise words. And
oh yes.
Thank you so much for being on the show and digging deep and talking about things that matter to you, and also your experiences on American Idol. I really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
And listeners, please check out the show notes for links to Zia Blue's websites, social medias, and please check out her song "He Dared" and keep her on the radar because she's very talented. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes, or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.